So, craziest thing just happened. I just woke up and bought a computer. Haven't bought one in a long while. Got it for pretty cheap, but it's an HP Phoenix Envy. That's a PC I've wanted for a long time. It was late the night before that I found the ad for a relatively cheap HP Envy Phoenix. I hit the seller up during the morning, and at around 11:30 we left home to head down south, to a small village about an hour and 15 minutes away. First off, we had to get some gas. But after that, we were cruising down the pine tree covered countryside of Sweden. Saw a couple lakes. And a ski resort. But otherwise the land was barren of anything interesting. The only thing available to alleviate my boredom was the presence of my girlfriend in the seat next to me, as well as a good Spotify playlist. So I have now picked up the machine. It's in very, very good condition. I'm very hyped about this one. It looks stunning. It's a HP Envy Phoenix, as I said. It's got this slightly trashy eraser sticker on the side, but we're gonna remove that. Otherwise, essentially, all of the details that I need are on it. It is in very good condition, so I'm really hyped. After we picked up the computer, we decided to get some refreshments. I ended up picking a sour drink of some kind of sour kiwi thing. And then we headed off once again in the car, but now it was back towards my home. Alright guys, so we're now back here with the PC. It's in pretty good condition. There are a couple scratches there. Gunmetal gray, looks very nice. The side panel is on the right side of the PC, so the opposite side of what it usually is, and that's because HP do their motherboards upside down on these computers, which is really interesting. This assembly is fairly easy. It's just lift this off, toolless. It has this tiny thumb screw, and this is what it looks like on the inside. So everything is basically pretty standard. There's this weird thing here where the SATA port goes into like an adapter that then goes into the SSD, which is a bit odd, but otherwise it's all fine. It has a Wi-Fi card, as you can see there, which is pretty cool. Wi-Fi is always neat to have. Standard cooler there, so it's an air-cooled system, which is fine, but it's a non-overclockable SKU under the hood, so I mean, it's not super big a deal. And yeah, as you can see, missing a graphics card. So we're gonna put that in. It does have the capability to support one. It was said that it should have a 6-pin connector somewhere, so we're gonna see if we can find that later. But yeah, we're gonna try today in this machine is, well, weirdly enough, an HD 5870. So, well, let's put that in there. But before we go on with the graphics, let's go over some of the specs. The machine is equipped with an i7-4770, a blazing fast chip on release, albeit a non-overclockable one. RAM-wise, the computer is equipped with 8GB of DDR3 in a dual stick configuration, and this should be more than enough for older games or esports titles. However, I would consider getting some more if I was planning to play some newer games on this machine, as this is right on the cusp of being too little for newer titles. Our storage consists of a single 120GB SSD, and while fast, this is not enough for storing more than one of today's massive titles, such as Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. On older titles, however, this is completely fine, and those are the ones we will be mainly testing today. Powering the machine is this no-name 600-watt power supply, which has no 80+ rating to speak of, only saying high efficiency on the side, which isn't exactly reassuring. The machine also comes equipped with an optical drive, a multi-smart card reader, as well as 2 extra USB ports on the front, and 2 up top. Next to this, we can see the headphone jack and microphone jack, with a Beats logo underneath. And this is supposed to be indicative of the so-called Beats audio the motherboard has, which is supposed to deliver a more bassy experience when playing video games, but this sounds to me like just a big marketing gimmick and really nothing else. I for sure can't tell the difference. Now that you've seen the rest of the specs, let's talk GPU. I decided, due to a lack of anything else even remotely appropriate in my collection, to use my HD 5870, as the GTX 780 I have is on loan with my girlfriend. Released in 2009, this card is a favorite of mine, and even though it definitely doesn't match either the time period or performance relative to this HP, it still kicks ass in older titles, and I thought that it would be a pretty good fit for now. That is, if the PC had wanted to start with it. Nothing I did could make a computer show video if I added a GPU to it. Onboard graphics worked if I took out a video card, but didn't if I put one in. First I thought that might be the card using too much power, so I tried putting in the dreadful HD 6450 that some of you might have seen in a previous episode. No dice. I spent an hour googling potential issues and solutions, scratching my head as both me and my buddy Barking Mad Tech had not seen anything like this before. After another half hour, I was exhausted due to excessive heat in my room and the PC not doing what I wanted. I was ready to give up. I was defeated. The PC had won. However, I decided to give it one more shot, and through some HP forum posts, I decided to try turning off safety boot and switching on legacy boot. The utter bliss that I felt as the GPU finally came to life is hard to describe. Now I could move on to actually installing drivers and the games that we were going to benchmark. Today's suite is a mix of various FPSs, because it's the only thing I play. Some of the titles are older, and some newer. However, as you can see, there are no recent AAA titles, since that would just be impossible to run on this HD 5870 anyway, and I think we'll save those for a future video. First off is something lighter. From the same year the HD 5870 released. Left 4 Dead 2 runs flawlessly at 1080p with every setting maxed out. I forget how fun this game is sometimes, and it's one of my favorite benchmarks for older PCs. An absolute favorite of mine. Killing zombies feels great, it's snappy, fluid, and honestly, it was kind of tough to stop playing while benchmarking. Next up is something more appropriate for the time the CPU released, as Call of Duty Black Ops 2 had its majority of its lifetime during 2013, and the CPU released during the second quarter of 2013. Playing online works well at high settings, and the frame rates stay above 80 FPS at all times, ensuring a smooth, consistent experience for lag-free gameplay. Personally, I've always found 80 FPS to be the threshold for me experiencing gameplay as smooth, and while this is of course completely arbitrary, if I sat down at this PC in 2014 to play some Black Ops 2, I would not be complaining. Next up is Heroes and Generals, one of my favorite online FPSs that I play. I have grinded this game so much over the years. Unfortunately, the game suffers from what I like to call CSGO syndrome, where the performance you get out of your machine in the game has steadily declined as the game is updated and gotten more advanced. Now while this sucks, it does seem to be very CPU bound, which is really nice for our i7-4770, which is allowed to flex its muscles here. Now performance isn't fantastic, but it definitely could be one hell of a lot worse. What truly is terrible though is my aim in this game at the moment. I have not played this in a long time. So next up is a tough cookie. Generation 0 has to be run at the lowest setting for the PC to even stand a chance, and at 720p. While the experience is serviceable and I am able to play the game pretty okay, it's not exactly what I would call enjoyable. The HD 5870 really shows its age here, and it's clear that it's not having a lot of fun while I'm fighting these robots in the Swedish countryside. Now it does seem like the i7 has a lot more to give, and the HD 5870 is severely holding it back. So while this is a great game, it's clear that this configuration of it for the PC isn't really fit for playing it. Now unfortunately, fraps would just not work on CSGO, and so my benchmarks here are going to be measured mostly by eye, so apologies for that. Now it looks very smooth most of the time, but when the smoke effects come on, the PC struggles a lot, and in esports titles like CSGO, this sort of inconsistent performance is unplayable. As such, it could be worse, but I'd recommend a stronger GPU for CSGO. And because I just know that someone will ask if I don't do it, here's Crysis. The game still looks fantastic, and running it at high settings, it looks roughly equivalent to Xbox One and PS4 titles in my opinion. With 1080p and 2x MSAA, we're hovering around the 60 FPS mark, which is more than playable for Crysis, and honestly, it's really impressive work on the HD 5870 side, in my opinion. I remember the first time I saw an NV Phoenix. It was 2015, and I had tagged along with my dad to Stockholm. He had to work, so I went to a very big and well-known internet cafe in the heart of the city. After I purchased a couple hours of playtime, I sat down at a station, and the Phoenix's red glow just immediately caught my eye. The design incorporates everything I like in pre-built towers, and it really gives off the vibe of being a souped-up version of his little brother, the Pavilion. The LEDs, the armor plating, the ventilation, the side panel, all of it is just a perfect balance of industrial, run-of-the-mill office PC and gaming panache. So with a Core i7 at its heart, this PC soars to the digital sky just like its namesake. While the performance isn't amazing right now, and despite the GPU market being as barren as it is, I know that there is only great things to come for this little machine.